most people have a fallback. You know, people who travel the world and even like, you know, we're digital nomads, we do all these things. Like if shit hit the fan and you needed even a ticket back to the country you're from, I'm sure you could rally that up, you know. But when you meet people who have no plan B, they've got no one that they can call. They are literally riding the lightning on their own. You realize like how lucky you are, but more importantly, like how important support is. You know, like as I said, when I opened up my barbershop, I moved back from the States. I had no money. I was 31 years old. I was going through a divorce and I was struggling with my mental health. So, but I made it a quest. I wanted to learn why these patterns were playing out, what it was, how, where it came from, all these things. But within less than 12 months, I had opened up my own shop because I was just so determined. But I said, I was riding a push bike to the station from my mum's house. I was living with my mum and then trying to get back on my feet. You know, that's what it was. So even though I was very grateful for my mother and like and support, you know, she listened a lot during that time and whatnot. But like even though I picked myself up and I said within a year I'd opened my own business and I worked extremely hard, I still had support. You know, I still had somewhere I could go to heal, to learn, to like curate, to calibrate, to reconnect,
To pick yourself up
to
again.
pick myself up, to like kind of dust myself off and like go again, you know. So when you don't have that, then like what do you do? So yeah, it just puts things into perspective. It put everything into perspective for me.
Absolutely. And you say that you opened your barbershop then back home in Australia. Was there something that you took on from the lessons that you had during your time in the homeless shelter? And you were saying like talking to the people and stuff. Was there something you took into the concept of your store?
For sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'm firstly like a lot of people were saying like, you know, are you sure it's a good idea to open up a barber shop down here? And it was a yeah, I said it was a coastal town, things like that. But I had a vision and I knew that I noticed it when I was in Amsterdam that there was a resurgence in barbering. And this was back, I mean, when was this? 2019. And so I realized that there was a resurgence, but the thing that stood out to me the most was it was amazing. The resurgence was back facilitating a safe space for men to go. Because if you think about it, before Gillette invented the razor, the handheld razor, men would go to the barber shop for a shave
With the knife.
with a cutthroat
Yeah.
razor, and so whether it was daily or every second day, it wasn't just a haircut; it was a shave. So this was a very social space for men to go, and it was a very safe space. Because if you think about it in Western society, there's not many spaces for men to just go and be men and just talk, and that really was quite prevalent in my intention. And so I created hour-long appointments, even though financially it wasn't as lucrative as if you did 15 to obviously 20-minute appointment like a lot of these places. But with no disrespect to other barbershops and their approach, but I couldn't think of anything worse. Somebody just coming in, just doing a haircut over like 20 minutes and then sending them on their way. Like, and I noticed when I was cutting hair in my friend's barbershop, when I would be stood side by side with another barber, that my conversations were not about the weather. It was not just about what you did on the weekend. And it wasn't just me asking questions. It was the whole time I was cutting somebody's hair, we were talking, we were engaging, we were really going deep. And so I realized I had a gift when it came to that. And sometimes it's not that I was comparing myself to others, but I kind of needed to see myself because I mean, that's been a big part of my own journey. But it was important for me to want to facilitate that safety of that barbershop space to men and clients who came in and got their haircut with me. So, yeah, it was hour-long appointments. there was, I had a diffuser. I was telling you earlier. I'd come into my shop and I'd turn on my salt lamp, and I'd second thing I'd do would put the diffuser on, and so there was a very nice balance, and there was a very unique energy in there because you could tell it was safe, but you could tell it was curated because every detail I considered, and I consider how it was. I would consider what I would go into a barber supply place and I would test brushes out on my own skin because I want I want to know what feels right. I want to know what feels good. I want my customers and clients to have an experience. I would
Feel
do,
pampered.
yeah, I would do shaves with a steamer. I had a steamer and shaves and hot towels and face massage, and I had all organic hair products that a product that I was using when I was working in a salon in Amsterdam, and so everything was top shelf, and because it was about the experience, but more importantly, it was about quality and integrity, and so carrying that into, I mean, everything I do, I can't not do it that way. It's just not how it's not how I want to be.
It's
So
not how you operate.
no, and I operate like that because I want to operate like that. It's not unconscious. Every part of it's conscious. So it was great. And even though people were like, yeah, everybody's got their own opinion, their own advice, but I'd stick to my guns and say no, this because it felt right. It felt right to me. So, but when I'd get to the end of the day, I would have, depending on how long I was cutting for that day, there'd be I would have spoken, and this is not an exaggeration. I would have spoken for 8 to 10 hours straight, holding space because it was our appointments. People would come in and we'd ask, we'd talk, we'd riff, we'd do this and that. So at the end of the day, it was quite a long time of talking each and every day. Yeah, which is great. So I loved it. I
loved it. Yeah. How did you decompress after this?
Well, as I said, fortunately, I didn't have social media, so I just sit on the couch and me and Smokey would hang out. So I got a puppy when I was there, and I had my shop. So he grew up in the barber shop, and it was a very beautiful moment because I'd always wanted a dog, but but I knew that I was traveling so much and it wasn't fair, and I knew when the time was right, the time would be right, and so yeah, I got Smokey, and he grew up in the shop, and he's so amazing. It's just
Beautiful.
so we just go, but of course, like for anybody listening who has a young puppy, it's like, they can tell when you're tired, right? So as soon as you sit down on the couch after a long day, they're on, they want to play. So yeah, luckily I had some spare leg ropes around and I could just lie on the couch and just play with Smokey with the leg rope. So that was good.
So good.
Yeah, that was fun.
Feels like everything has come full circle for you. Saying that you like to do longer appointments, to hold space for people, and now you're holding the same space within your private practice.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it was a natural evolution for sure. Once again, it was hard, but not so hard to let go of. Right? I don't know. I've always had this ability to know to have the ability to know why I'm somewhere, and also know when to leave. And it's my intuition that tells me both of those things. So when I realized that though I love cutting hair, what I love more was connecting with people. And I thought to myself, I don't really want to stand behind a barber chair for the rest of my life. And I was in the middle of renovating. I was running a business. I was renovating my family holiday home that has been in our family for like 5 generations. And I was in the process of about to open up my second shop. And I remember I was out the back of the house with the sawhorses cutting some timber, and the guys I was talking to with this new space had emailed me the lease. And so I was looking over the lease, and I didn't even have time to really look at it. You know, I was reading over, I saw the plans, I saw the price and everything like this, and I just thought like, I remember looking up and looking at the house, and you know, it was like a dream come true renovating that home. You know, my grandfather, it was originally one house, it burnt down in Ash Wednesday fires, and then my grandfather built the house, and they, instead of building one, they built two, and so then it kind of skipped a generation. Then it was my turn. You know, I was renovating the house for my family, and so it was a dream come true. But I remember looking at the house, knowing how much work was still left, thinking I love my shop, and I'm just about to open up another one, and I thought to myself, well, why are you actually doing this? You know, what are you actually trying to achieve? And I realized I was trying to obtain more freedom, but it was somewhat contradicting because I was about to work, I was already working an insane amount, right? Running a business and doing a renovation by myself. And I was about to open another shop. So I was like, what part of this is going to create freedom? And I was like, well, let's paint the perfect picture. And what would create that would be money. It's like, okay, great. But money just doesn't appear. You have to work very hard. No, it's not, this isn't what everybody has to do. But when you're in a tangible space and you're creating something, particularly from the ground up, it's you. You are the business. And even from the day you start to the day you close, you are the business. And so it was very evident, and I knew that very well. And so I was like, I'm going to have to be there, show up, put my blood, sweat, and tears into this, train people, do all these things. And then eventually, let's hope, perfect scenario would be like a year, absolutely minimum to like 2 years. You could then maybe get a manager in and all this stuff whilst you're managing other stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, all right, so that won't even come for a couple of years. And then I was like, and in the process of that happening, even though at this stage of my life, for anybody listening, I had removed alcohol, I'd given up alcohol. So not only was I adjusting to a life of sobriety, I was also doing all this other stuff. So then I was like, I had this knowing, it wasn't even a feeling, I had this knowing that by taking on all of that, trying to achieve freedom by getting more money, that I would make bad health choices in the process of doing that. Because you can't get something for nothing, right? Like it's just one of those things. And it's like, if you want to go after it, it's going to put you under stress. It's going to test you, push you to the limits, things like that. And limits are there to be pushed if your soul is aligned with it, if you're ready to go. You know, I was ready to go down with the ship with that barbershop. It was my dream. I was creating a dream. But the next part, was that really my dream? Was that worth going down with the ship? Really? Was that worth burning the candle at both ends? And so I had to be real. I had to be real with myself and just go, I don't want to create my own unhappiness. And also too, like the grass is green when you water it. I was like, I love my shop. Everybody loves the shop. It's beautiful. It was a beautiful space. I feel very grateful that the landlord, like I had 100-year-old brick fireplace in my shop. There was hand pressed bricks from that town, from the old logging milling days, you know, like it was wooden floorboards, two-toned. Like I put red gum benches in, mirrors, I put planter boxes above the mirror, the plants would cascade down over the mirror, salt lamps. I had Chesterfield couches.
Movie set.
I had my grandfather's fridge from 1930s, like Calvinator that had all patinaed. It was just like, it was beautiful. It literally looked like a movie set. It was amazing. I was like, well, I'm about to not give this up, but I'm going to chase the dragon, right? Like that's the thing. And bigger isn't also necessarily better. And so I had to give him a call and say I'm sorry, but it's not like me to pull out on things, right? Like I'm a committed person when I want to be. Like when in my heart am I passion and soul align with something, I'm all in.
Mm.
So
Did you achieve the freedom that you wanted after giving up on your dream that you fulfilled it, but it was time to let it go?
I still had to give up even more of my freedom to get it, you know. And I would say that I then finished off the renovation. I sold my shop after having it on the market for 10 months. And anybody who sold a business, that they know what it's like when you've put your everything into it. You know, it's unexplainable amount of time and energy that you put into a business. Only other operators know. So it's very personal, and it was a very emotionally overwhelming experience. But I had met a client, and I told him that had this feeling. This was probably like 6 months before I sold it, and I said, I got a feeling that I had a connection with a friend's brother who sent people over to the Solomon Islands to teach carpentry, and that was something I was looking into. So I remember saying to his client, I'm like, I've either got a feeling I'm going to end up in the Solomon Islands, or something's telling me I'm going to go up north of Australia and work with Aboriginal community. And of course, I didn't know how that looked or whatever. And then he told me about this non-for-profit, and I was like, okay, great. And I wrote it down. I put in a bit of paper and put it in the drawer. Anyway, I kind of followed the path of trying to, you know, see whether the Solomon Islands was going to work out, because it was kind of two birds, one stone. I would go surfing and obviously just be in Solomon Islands teaching these legends how to build houses. How great. But also too, I felt like I was going backwards. I didn't really want to do the carpentry thing. But what it did is it opened up the doorway, because I had to do my Cert 4 and training assessment. You know, it's a very, very, very dry course, and it was all correspondence, all online. And to put it in perspective, most people finish that course in a good run. They finish it in 12 months. I heard of stories of people finishing in 6, which was quite an amazing achievement. I finished it in 3.5. And because I was just
wanted to get it done.
Wanted to get it done. I want to get the ball rolling. I just wanted to move on, you know. And once again, I wasn't drinking, right? So I wasn't going out partying. I wasn't doing anything like that. So my Sundays were just like, I would just hit modules, and I'd just be like, boom, boom, boom. I wouldn't stop until I was done, you know. And I'm a very consistent person. So, I mean,
unlocked hermit mode.
Yeah. Me and Smokey would do our thing. We'd go for a walk down the beach. We'd come back. I'd, you know, go for a surf or something, then come back and just study, you know. But that was cool, because I didn't realize, but that was a stepping stone as well to further studies later down the track and whatnot. So then I finished the course. I rang the guy back up, and he's like, he was blown away that I wasn't finished. And he said, oh, well, this opportunity, this interview isn't until May next year. So it was still months away. And I was like, that doesn't work for my timeline. So I literally went into the shop the next day, opened up the drawer, found that note, and I was like, okay, and I emailed those guys. And turns out they only do in-house hiring. And the guy that I got the information from was a lawyer, but then had decided he wanted to go back into that kind of field. So just got a job as a director up in Karratha. And so because he got the job, and because I put him as a reference, they're like, oh yeah, we can have a look at your application, because it's in-house. So next thing you know, I'm doing these interviews and bits and pieces, and some guys kind of doing like a Victorian recruitment thing, and they went and they hosted this night in Ballarat, and I was on the coast. It was like 2 hours away. And I was, of course, like, well, I'm going to go in person, right? Like, I'm going to go introduce myself and say hi. And I think that they said that there was like 15 people who were invited, and I was the only person who rocked up in person. But it was quite funny, because I had...
Everybody's called in, like video called, or?
Everybody's video called in, yeah. But I had, it's quite funny, because I had black nail polish at the time. And I remember one of the guys, because the whole thing was like, it started as a footy kind of support system for Aboriginal boys. So it's kind of like an incentivized, very incentivized support structure to motivate young Aboriginal boys to go to school. So as you can imagine, the guys who were there were old footy dudes. So like seeing a guy rock up, even though they're like this, he's the only person who's rocked up in person, but also too is quite alternative, right? But then it was quite funny because then got to the next interview and then whatever, and then they were kind of like, one of them very sheepishly asked about the nail polish and bits and pieces, and it was quite funny because when older guys are very uncomfortable within their masculinity, it's quite indirect and
You're threatened.
yeah, they just can't. Well, they just can't even conceive the idea. They don't understand, so they're just like, oh, they just, well, people just want to categorize you and put you into a box, right? So anyway, I requested to go to Arnhem Land, and then there was no positions available in Arnhem Land, and they said, where else do you want to go? And on the application, I said, I want to go as remote as possible, because to me, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to go have the most authentic experience. So I want to be in the most remote Aboriginal community there is. And I got the job, and I then became the director of the academy out in Fitzroy Crossing, which was 4 hours inland of Broome. And so I didn't even look up any photos. I didn't do any research. I didn't do anything. I was just like, great, let's go. And so I went from having a beautiful shop, a now beautifully renovated house, a 1979 maroon Mercedes sedan, a Royal Enfield stealth black motorbike, and my own schedule, surfing every morning, cruising around, having a good time, to wearing whatever I wanted, right? Like that's what I loved, no uniform, because I really didn't like that about construction. Not that I had to wear high vis, thank God, but I didn't like that.
Steel cap shoes.
Yeah, just the high vis. But that's just a personal thing. So then I gave all of that up to then, move to the other side of the country and move out to an Aboriginal community and wear a uniform and work for somebody else. But it was incredible. It was just so amazing, you know. And I quickly realized that I got to spend time with these 40 young Aboriginal boys from all ages, from primary school all the way up to year 12. And they were just a breath of fresh air. They were amazing kids, you know. And that's how I quickly realized that I wasn't there to save the day, you know. Like, it's not, so many people head up into these roles and positions thinking they're going to make this change and they're going to do these things and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, I quickly realized that all I have to do is just be a positive male role model. That's it. So I got to reminisce on what my childhood was like and the influences I had, the older influences I had in my life, and what were the little subtleties that made that connection so special. And it was freedom. It was like, it was a part of allowing a kid to just be a kid, you know. And so I'd go pick up kids for school and bits and pieces, and man, these kids loved Tupac and country music. So we would just cruise around blasting Tupac, you know, and also listen to country music. And I remember that as a kid, you know, like music played a huge part in my life. Still does. I mean, I play music, but it's when you have that freedom, it's like when I remember being a kid, and it was like, even though I had more freedoms in certain areas, it was like you can't just blast the music super loud, like bits and pieces, and so these kids, like, they just, you could tell in certain moments they just felt so free. And you know, there was other people who would be like, oh, no swear words with the music and with the kids and da da da, and I was like, man, this is the least of these kids' problems, you know. Like, at least give them a break from the lives they're living. Like, let them escape for a little bit and forget about life for a while, you know. Which is a sad thing to say when you're talking about kids, but there's a lot, yeah, there's a lot that happens that people have no idea about. So it's I saw that, you know, I saw those kids for who they are and built some really beautiful bonds just from just being, not being anything other than just showing up. But I said to the kids pretty early too, I said, because I noticed like there were so many teachers that would just be basically white noise, you know, like they'd, don't do this, put your feet off this, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And I could just see these kids just tuning out, like straight away, just tuning out, which, I mean, I was tuning out. I was like, man, this person's so annoying, you know, like, and if I'm annoyed, of course the kid's going to be annoyed. Or just, and not annoyed, but you know what I mean? It's just like, you could see how pointless it was. So anyway, I made a pact with the kids early. I said, guys, you can do what you think is right within your own understanding of what's happening here. I'm not going to say much, but just know that when I talk, I have something to say. And that's it. And so, you know, you'd see kids with their feet on the couches and things like that, and you look at them. Of course, I wouldn't give them the the side eye or anything. But you look, everybody knows what they're doing is right or wrong in that context. And so we formed a really beautiful system because they listened when I spoke.
Don't nitpick on them for
Nah.
unnecessary things.
Because kids are meant to be kids.
Yeah.
You know, like there was rules. Like when a kid is unnecessarily swearing and things like that, you kind of like that's when you can call something out, right? Like I didn't just let poor behavior happen. Like, and I was very conscious of how I was. Like I also didn't want to contradict myself and be a person who walks around swearing and then tells kids you're not allowed to swear. Like I think that double standard's horrendous. So it kept me very accountable for my own actions. But it worked well because when I spoke, they listened because they knew that I wasn't going to throw them shade or get on their back unless there was something to be said. So we had a lot of fun. It was great. It was really, really cool. Yeah, it was one of the best experiences I've had in Australia, for sure. You know, we go down to the river. You can't imagine like going down to the river with a bunch of local kids. We're all fishing with hand lines. Kids are catching goannas. There's lighting spot fires on the riverbank, cooking up. You know, the sun setting, the hawks flying overhead, like the dust, the community, the way that people interact with one another, the sense of family, the sense of connectedness. Like if you ever get to experience true local Aboriginal communities out on country, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. There's no other way to describe it.
Beautiful.
So connected to the land. Everything. The land is everything. It's everything. And I was very blessed. I got invited out to country with traditional elders, traditional owners, elders, like really upstanding people of the community. And it was inspiring. It was amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you for painting that picture for everyone that's listening. Feel like that's a really good point or note to end on. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there you have it. The voice behind your story, your medicine.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. And I would say we'd put it out there as well if there are any questions upcoming or anything specific that people would like to know about. Please reach out to us. Send us a message so we can incorporate it maybe into the next episode. Because I feel like this has given us a really good picture on who is behind your story, your medicine, who is behind, you know, the voice that is listening. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
My pleasure. Thank you.